downpour. That rain just never stops. Okay, well, let's switch it up here a bit today. I usually don't post anything about work stuff or welding, just because it's work, and I mostly just post things that I'm doing or interested in, and hobby stuff that's fun to me. But here we go. This isn't so I got to renew my B pressure. I just paid the money, and I booked in to get my B pressure renewed. So it's going to be a small bore max wall thickness. So it's a 2-inch. This isn't as thick. The actual piece, it's like a small little hole in the middle. It's this thick weld pipe. And what that does is you can weld from 2-inch and up any wall thickness. So it's the max wall thickness small bore pipe test is what it is. So it expired on me, so I just booked in. So next week I got to go renew that, and I don't weld much pressure pipe, but this test, or these test coupons, I got it pretty well dialed in. So I don't really need to practice, but I like to fire off at least one test weld. So today's Friday, I go Tuesday morning. So I got my beveler, so I'll cut this weld up and tack it up, and then I'll show you kind of how to do it and how to pass your test. Of course, every time. It never friggin' fails. Why? Why, rain? Oh my goodness. Yikes. Okay, so if you have no experience at all with welding a pipe or a full pin, you should just start practicing on plate coupons. But in school, they generally teach you start with a 1/8 land and a 1/8 gap. Different things work for different people. So what I do, it's like it's in between 1/8 and 332. It's like I call it a small 1/8. So then when I tack it up, I stick the 1/8 spacer rod in, put one tack on, pull it out, and put my other 2 tacks in. So then by the time it's tacked and it sucks in, a rod won't fit in. So it's a small 1/8, small 1/8, proportionate. I don't really know what amperage I set at because it doesn't really show on my machine, but usually to start out, try a 1/8 land, a 1/8 gap, 75 amps, and then a 1/8 6010, and then you go from bottom to top. And there's your starting point. So when you get these coupons at a testing facility, they'll be pre-machined, usually to a knife edge. So what you'll do is you'll take your grinder and you'll grind your land on. So just do it a little bit at a time and just check your land with a 1/8 rod around. Make sure it's even and consistent, and really take your time with this part. But when you're grinding on top, what will happen is it'll form a burr. So it'll look like your land is bigger than it is. So every once in a while, grab your file and file around the inside edge and the outside to file your burr off, so you're getting a proper reading of your root face. And usually when you're lining up pipe, you don't want to line it up on the outside, you want to line up the hole on the inside. So usually when you got a bigger pipe, you'll fit it up like this. You look down through the hole on top, find out where the 2 pipes fit together the best, mark a chalk line, then set your spacer wire on, line up your chalk marks, look down through the top, right, line it up, and then you put your first tack in, then you pull out your spacer wire, then you adjust your gap, and then you put your other 2 tacks in. But we'll go through. So in the test, I believe what it is, it's a 2-inch, it's double extra heavy, so I think that's sked 160. So the outside is just a little bit smaller than this, and then the inside's like maybe an inch hole or so. It's pretty wild. So yeah, I'll get fired up here and we'll start tacking this up. Okay, now this is a small pipe, but it applies to all pipe. So I don't know how good you'll be able to see this here. You see, there's my tack, and there. Sometimes I like to close it up even more than that, but as long as it's not digging out the edges, I don't know if you can see. As long as it's not digging out the edges, right? As long as your root gap is the same width coming out of the tack there in your crater. See that one? I zapped it. See, I zapped it a few times to make sure it was completely shut, so there's no keyhole at the end of the tack. See, in that one too, I turned it down a bit colder there. So the good part is about tacking, especially in the test, you can tack in whatever position you want, but you got to weld it at the 45-degree angle or whatever angle the test calls for. So your tacks, they'll have a size, an allowable size. They got to be between that size, you know, just a maximum length and a minimum length for your tacks. So what you do here is you make your tacks longer. If you're allowed 1/2 inch, make your tacks 3/4 of an inch, because it's the finished tack that you show them, not what you put at the start. So on this end, when you first start in, there might just be a little area where it's not all the way penetrated in until it gets warm and starts digging in. And then the other end, you don't want to leave a crater, so you're just going to zap it a few times to fill that crater right up. So you take, what I do, and I use these pretty much only for testing. They're, I think they're a 5/64. So the 5/64 disc. So with my, you know, a little under 1/8 gap here. Oh, see, my gap's a little big here, but right there, that's about good. A little under 1/8 gap here with a 5/64 disc. So what you do, you take your grinder and you go on the edges, you go straight in and you cut, you know, just a bit off, because you can see on the inside. You're not going to be able to see it here, but on the inside where you're penetrating good, and each side of the tack it's not penetrated quite as good. So you cut in, you cut that first cold start stuff out, you grind that out, and you grind that out from each side, and you ramp it. So you start off, you go straight in with your disc, and cut right down into the good meat of the root. And then you'll take your disc after, because you don't want to leave those sharp gouges, then you'll take your disc after and kind of just angle the sides down, right? So you get a nice transition. So you leave all the meat right in the center of your tack, and then it ramps down on both sides. So what's left is a good full fused tack with a nice feathered out edge on each side with that 5/64 disc. So I'll feather my tacks out and I'll show you that. See, so the first stage of your grinding here, you just cut straight in, and you'll look on the inside of the pipe and you'll see. You'll just keep grinding in until you're into the good meat of the tack. See? And then you'll you'll feather it out from there. There you go. So your fit up, your land, and your fit up and your tacks is the most important part of the test. Getting your tacks in properly and getting them feathered properly. Now the nice part is, you can tack in any position. So you set it up where you're comfortable on the table to tack it, and that really tells you a lot about your fit up and your settings on your machine, right? Because you can tell if you're too hot or too cold or what you need to do to get that root in there just from your tacks. So when you're tacked up and you're ready to weld, you have a good idea of where you're at with your settings. And you can adjust your amperage and stuff while you're putting your tacks in. And if you put one tack in a bit too cold, you can take that thin disc, carefully cut it back out and try again. So it's nice. You got to really take your time and get things dialed in with your tacks so that when it comes to the weld, you're ready to go. And see, that's the beauty of this disc. It's just the right thickness that you can hammer it in that groove. And even if during your test, if that groove sucks up on you and you're having a hard time getting penetration, hammer that disc in there. It's going to make a bigger land, but it's also going to make a bigger gap. So it's still going to stay proportional. So you can just use the same settings and still rock it in there. So the thing is, just follow the steps. If you've got to that point, you know what you're doing anyways. Stay calm and just work through it. The worst thing you can do is just start panicking and start welding and doing crazy stuff. Just stick to what you know, nice and slow, nice and simple. So we'll get this tacked up at a 45 and we'll burn a root in. So there we go. I got just smaller than a 1/8 land. My gap varies between 332 to 1/8. So I like to put the fattest part of my gap on the bottom, and this is all preference. So on the bottom is a nice fat tack and then a nice wide gap section. The thing is with this pipe, and the real test is even smaller, when you go to put your root in, the 45 makes it easy because there's no real overhead. It kind of tilts the pipe up so you can get at it. And also, like, look how short of an area you have to go. So you start right in the middle of this tack, get her good and cooking, and then you go right up to there. And you can even cook right around if you want, or stop, right, re-feather it out, carry on. And don't try to be a hero. Stay super comfortable. If you got to put a chain grip or something to lean on with your shoulder. So the real test, it's only a small little spot in between. You got to just do that much of a root, feather, that much of a root, feather, that much of a root, feather, and that's it. You're done. And then it's just fill and cap after that. So I don't know what I'm running at. My machine doesn't have any digital, but somewhere between 75 and 80 amps, I'll guess. 1/8 6010. I use the Lincoln, the 5P Plus Lincoln 6010. And yeah, let's fire this one out. you go. That was real time. Blaze it in there, slick as snot. It's been, since I did this test, or any full pin pipe weld test, it was 2 years ago when I did this same test. And I hadn't done a small bore test before. I bought this pipe, blazed one out for fun, and that was it. And I figured I didn't even need to try practicing this time, but I figured I should at least practice one. I've been welding for 14 years, and for me to, it was a hard road for me to start to learn how to weld. I didn't catch on to it right away, and especially this pipe welding stuff. Like, you know, it took me a while to get into it, but when it came time to get my B pressure test, my 6-inch B pressure test there, the initial B, I passed first try. So it's kind of like riding a bicycle. Once you get it, you got it. It might take a while to get there, but don't think that you can't do it, because I thought for years that I couldn't do it. And then once I started and tried, now I got it. So you're not going to be able to see in there, guaranteed. But I didn't even look in myself yet, but it felt good. That's a good route. No trouble at all. So I'm going to clean this up and we'll keep going. See that? Deadly. It's a deadly root right there. Perfect. Come on. There. Oh. Anyway, she's mint. So now what we're going to do, and this is a test, so you're going to give yourself every opportunity you can for success. So we're going to grind this down. It's not bad. See, it's going to just be 3 little high spots where your tacks were, and then that's it. So I'm going to grind this down. So what you do is you take that small disc off. Once your root's in, you take that thin disc off, and the best thing to do is it's a 1/4-inch disc that's used with a rounded edge. So you know, you don't want to cut in or create any kind of wagon tracks or anything. You just want a nice round disc. And you'll come in with that, and you'll wallow it out nice and round and smooth and free of any inclusions. And the nice part about going with a bit of a heavier land and moving a bit slower, you get more buildup with your 60-10. Like, look how much fill I have already. So that gives me a nice heavy root. So then it gives me room to grind down to bare metal and still not have to worry about burning through on my hot pass. So I'm going to grind this to clean metal. Then we'll fire up the 7018. And the first pass is going to be a weave. But I don't like to focus right straight in the center of the weld, because you don't want to burn through. If you burn through your root, you're done. But there is times where you'll be going and you're kind of burning through and kind of keyholing. Sometimes if you hold it in there and keep it going, you can get lucky and just kind of have a 7018 root in there. So the best, it's tight arc length, and just hold her in there. And I try to focus on the meat. Fast across the metal, focus on the meat. So the first pass is going to be a weave. So we're going to grind, we're going to weld, and we'll go from there. So there we go. See, she's just ground out. Nice and wide and rounded off there. Just a light grind, just to knock off the high spots. Bugger. I thought I was filming myself welding in the hot pass, but the camera wasn't even going. But it doesn't matter, it's just me welding. It came out pretty hot. But when you grind it out to smooth metal like that, there's really nothing to burn out. So you just set it to where you can comfortably put in a pass. And that's it. So I thought I was filming, but I wasn't. But I went from here to the top, then just hit that quick with a grinder to feather it, then they're up again. And yeah. So now we're good. Roots in, hot pass is in. So now it's just regular welding. Just fill and cap. That's all. Once you get that hot pass in, your root becomes very pronounced. They say that it pushes in. One course I took one time, they said it's a myth, it doesn't push in, it just burns off the slag and burns off the pipe coating so you can see more of it, but I don't know. I think your hot pass does push the root in. So, not really coming up with a crap here, but yeah, we're looking deadly. And see, it took, I don't know, maybe not even a minute to do that hot pass. The root takes maybe not even 2 minutes. It's a very quick weld. So when this weld is done, it's going to be a stringer cap. It's going to be 3, maybe 4 stringers. If you have a bit of undercut, put a quick 5th one on it. It doesn't matter as long as you're not ridiculous on your width and it looks good. So this was a bit of a weave. The next pass is probably going to be another weave. And you'll tell yourself when it's time to start breaking your weaves off into multiple stringers, right? So first, I'll probably put a weave over this. The next one will probably be a lower pass and an upper pass. You just gotta make sure you're leaving enough room to get that second pass in. If there's not quite enough room to get that second pass in, you don't think you will, just go with a weave. And then as you start coming out, then you'll go 2 passes and maybe 3 passes. And then you just take your time. You just run nice stringers, nice stringers, nice stringers until you're filled and capped. So let's bring her right out. I think we're high enough to try to get a cap on there. So I put in my hot pass. That was a weave, and then I put in my first fill pass was another weave, and then I put 3 stringers over that, 3 wide. See, and this weld doesn't take long. It's hot and fast. So I was running quite hot right up until the second stringer pass, and then it was getting real hot. Right, the pipe starts getting hot, so you can turn down your amperage. Like an old CWB guy said once in a test, he said, we don't got time to stop and let your weld cool. He said, just turn down your amperage and keep going. So that's what I do. So I turned it down quite a bit for this last one here. And usually when I'm testing, I get to this point and then I stop, kind of chill out, regroup, get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, whatever, hang out for a little while. Then I come back and I proceed to do my cap. So there we are. And I left a bit to fill, so it's probably going to be, it'll be 4 stringers anyways, I think. And sometimes you turn it right down to do the last pass just so you're not getting any undercut. But yeah, don't be afraid. Once you get it filled up and things went well, you got time to stop and let things cool down and to relax a bit before you finish your weld off. Alright, well I had some other obligations to tend to for a few hours today, so now here's the evening, so we'll just cap this off. So I got the first cap pass in before I had to shut down. So the first pass, it doesn't got to be nothing fancy. All you're really looking at is this side. You're just looking, so you use your edge as your margin. And when you're putting these cap passes on, sometimes I'll do it a lot, doing like an overhead CWB. If you don't want to lose track of where you are, you can always just take your soapstone and draw a line, right? And you can just follow that line to keep your beads straight if you have to. But here you just follow that edge. So all you're really looking at is that bottom edge. So you just want your weld to be relatively straight, and to be no undercut on this edge, and to be above flush. And that's about all you're looking at here. So the next pass, I'm just going to tie in, see, because I left a bit to fill. So I want to go at least halfway in on this weld to make sure I'm going to be high enough on the next weld. And then, so I'll put in 2 stringers. That might be enough. If not, I might go with a little stringer around this side. And when it comes down to the top one, again, all you're looking at is this side. So you're getting the edge, and you're not getting any undercut. And it's as simple as that. So let's cap this out. Bam blam, and she's done. So this, you're going to notice, it's a little lumpy and bumpy, and it's definitely not perfect, because I don't do this all. Last time I did this was 2 years ago, but that there's a pass. That's acceptable. The weld's over flush, not too big, there's no undercut, and the root's in there really well. And it's just it's a quick weld. It doesn't take a lot of time. Like they're quick small passes. are running nice and hot. There are no issues. And that's it. So that's the thing with pressure welding. You can't, you do need to take it serious and get the proper training and put in the proper time before you go for your tests and before you go with, try to get a job in pipe welding. But some people are under the misconception that everything's got to look just so perfect and flawless, and it really doesn't. It depends what code you're welding under. It depends on the acceptability of what's allowed. So when the inspector comes to check your weld, he's basically got his procedure, and it's a list. So it's okay, there's this much undercut allowed. Your weld's allowed to be a maximum of this high. Maybe you're allowed a bit of porosity. Whatever the procedure is. So he's going to look at it. He's going to see a little spot. He'll measure it. If it's within spec, you carry on. And so it's really just, when you're starting out, it's just worry about meeting the minimum requirement and getting within those parameters. And then the weld's going to pass. It's not going to fail. So a lot of these people put this pipe welding up on this, high pedestal and look at all these Instagram photos and things of people, and they get intimidated. But this weld right here, that's a perfectly acceptable weld. That's a pass, no problem at all. So if anyone's thinking about going pipe welding and they don't think they can, you can practice. If you can get in at a pipe shop and get experience that way, or do what I did and just pay the money and get the training, or whatever you can do, you can do it. It's just time. Just put in the time, follow the steps, you know what you need to do, stay calm, don't panic, and get her done. So there's that. I don't know, today's Sunday, Tuesday I test. I don't know if I'll get much footage of me in the booth or not, but I'll try to get a little bit of something, showing you the real test. So right on, guys. That's it for now. Over and out. It's getting pretty late at night here. I better go to bed soon, but I'm trying to get this video put up. One thing I forgot to add. After the test, after you weld it out, they take your pipe coupon and they cut it into narrower strips. I don't know, it's 4 or 5 straps, whatever, the different areas of your weld. They cut straps out. And for this particular test, it's a side bend. Like some, when they bend your coupons, they'll bend a root face, a root bend, or a face bend. These ones, the side bend. So the sides of your coupon, right? Edges of your coupon, this side will be like the root side, and this side will be the cap side, and they bend it sideways. So it bends, kind of tests your whole weld, I guess. So yeah, that's all I got to add to that. So